And hello, it's Friday, and once again, we are in the company of the fabulous UW Extension, Walworth County Master Gardeners. We're with Julie, Heather, and Ruth this morning, and we're going to be talking seeds, and more seeds. Take it away, Julie.
Thank you, Michelle. Yes. Hi, everybody. Happy Friday. It's going to be a really lovely hot weekend. We're happy to be here again with Michelle and Aram Library. My name is Julie Hill. I am the Horticulture Outreach Specialist for Rock and Walworth counties. So we've put together this programs kind of in the absence of being able to do our face-to-face programming with all of you. We still want to be able to answer your gardening questions. So if you're joining us today or another day, just pop those questions into that comment box. I do have Ruth here, a Master Gardener, and Heather here, and she's actually in our class to become a Master Gardener. So we are here to answer those questions and give you lots of resources later on. So I'll just share my screen with all of you. Thank you, Aram Library, for hosting us every week. It's been a joy to be here to talk about gardening and help give advice every week. And even if you don't catch us live today, Aram Library has these videos on their Facebook page. So you can check out past videos, and we've covered all sorts of different topics so far this summer. So you can watch recorded videos, and if you can't join us live. And again, I'm with the University of Wisconsin. I work for a division of extension as a staff member. And I just want to share with you that our mission is really to connect to all of you in the communities and connect resources from the university, information, reliable and credible research to really help you with all of your needs. So we cover gardening and horticulture through this program, and that's my role, but we have educators in all sorts of different areas all throughout the state. Master Gardeners are a huge component of fulfilling our mission. And Master Gardeners are volunteers with the University of Wisconsin. So that means they meet all of the volunteer requirements set forth by the university. And they also have to maintain certification. So like I said, Heather is in a class right now that's training her to become a Master Gardener. Our Master Gardeners also have to fulfill community service and continuing education. So we always talk about how Master Gardeners and gardeners themselves are lifelong learners. We love to learn. There's always something new to learn. There's always something to try in the garden. And so Master Gardener program is a huge proponent of that. Ruth, I am going to turn over to you to get us into our top 5 for this week.
Well, thank you, Julie. You talked about being a lifelong learner, and I've been gardening for over 40 years, and I'm still learning lots and lots of new things. And one of the things that I've been learning about within the last 4 or 5 years is about saving seeds. And so I thought that I would share from the perspective of a relatively new learner, the things that I think are the most important for other new learners to know. So the first thing you want to know about saving seeds is that you need to have a variety of seed. Whatever your vegetable or flower is, the variety needs to be something that is what's called open pollinated. And basically it means it has fairly stable genetics from generation to generation. So you have a plant, you get the seeds from it, you put them in the ground, it grows up to be a plant that is substantially similar to the plant that you got the seed from to begin with. What are not open pollinated seeds are so you look at your seed packet and maybe it doesn't say open pollinated. Maybe it says F1 or it says hybrid, and those don't work as well because they don't have the stable genetics. So you may plant, they'll grow seeds. You can plant them and you'll get, let's say it's a tomato, you'll get a tomato plant, but it may not be like the tomato plant that you had last year. So it's a roll of the dice. So if you're looking for something that you can count on, you need the open pollinated seed. The second thing you need to know is that in order to get that stable genetics, it needs to be pollinated by a plant of the same type. So either itself or another plant of the same variety. And so what you don't want is, if we stick with the tomato example, you don't want to cross a Roma tomato with a Brandywine tomato and expect to get one or the other, because again, it's a roll of the dice. So you have to plan before you plant how you're going to avoid cross-pollinating different varieties. And the easiest way to do that is just plant one. So I like to grow Brandywine tomatoes. And so some years I grow only Brandywine tomatoes, and that makes it easy. Or I may have lettuces, and I may have 3 or 4 different varieties of lettuce, but that's something where what I'm eating is the greens. So what I let go to seed may be only one variety. So that's an easy way to avoid pollination. And there are some other ones that involve a certain amount of distance, or some physical barrier that keeps things from getting onto your seed plants. But you can learn about those as you study a little bit more about saving seeds. Number 3, and this is a hard one. You want to save the seeds from your best plants. It's not so much of an issue if you're growing flowers, because you still get to enjoy the flowers, but with some of the vegetables and stuff, those are the ones you're going to want to eat, but those are the ones you should save for the seeds. So it's a bit of a challenge, but you'll get better seeds from better plants. Okay, Julie?
Sure.
Okay. Then the next thing is, you need to know that the time when the seed is ripe is not always the time when you would consider it ripe for eating if it's a vegetable. So for example, the green beans in the picture, the one on the far left there, is perfectly great for eating. The one in the middle, if you like dry beans or shell beans, that would be wonderful. The one on the far right is the way you want it to be if you're going to be saving seed. So it's called seed ripeness versus market ripeness. And with some things you can do both. With tomatoes, you can squeeze out the seeds and enjoy the rest of the tomato, or can it, or use it in a stew or a chili. With peppers, you need to, if you harvest them green, the seeds themselves will not be fully mature, so they will not produce plants for next year. You have to let them get their full color. If it's something that's going to turn red, once it's red, then it's ready to save seed. Flowers, very often it's easy for them to, there's no difference in most cases. So, and then once you have your seed, once you collect it and you deal with it, in many cases, all you have to do for your seed is let them dry right on the plant. The beans there, that's how the one on the right got that dry, is you just leave it longer. And I have some other pictures in a minute that are like that as well. And a lot of seeds are like that: peas, beans, flowers, a lot of herbs. But there are some things that have seeds that are encapsulated, like tomatoes, where they have that wet jelly, or cucumbers as well, that do require an extra step before you dry. But it's really, really important. And there's some more information in the resources on saving those wet seeds. They require a fermentation process. It's kind of fun. It's kind of icky, and it's kind of fun. But it is really important that your seed is good and dry before you save it. And then the last thing is, how do you save your seeds? They need to be stored in a cool, dry place. The cooler the better, the drier the better. And I usually keep them, this is my high-tech seed saving system. Glass jar with a lid is one of the best ways that you can save seed. It will help the seed live the longest in storage. And if you have one of these packages of silica gel that they put in shoes and computers and all kinds of things, you can toss that in there too to help keep your seeds nice and dry. And then once you store them properly like that, with very few exceptions, most seeds will be good for at least 3 years. So, and then a couple more quick ones. We talked about the seed being fully ripe versus, and so the photograph there on the right is some cilantro seed. And you see on the left edge of that photograph, the seeds are still pretty green. And as you move to the right, they get drier and drier and drier. And all the way over on the right is where you're going to want to be saving your seed. And you can leave them on the plant until that time, just like I did with these chive seeds in the other picture. These blossoms, my chives just sat there until the blossoms got that dry, and then I cut them off and brought them inside and held them over my counter and went tap, tap, tap to the fistful. And there are my chive seeds all ready to leave dry for a little bit longer and then store in my glass jars. So it's a fun thing to try. If you can start simple, you can get more complex, and eventually, if you want, you can become your very own plant breeder. So saving seeds is fun. Okay, so if you're interested in saving seeds, there's a resource within the Walworth County system at the Whitewater Library that you should be aware of. I think it's wonderful. In fact, this is one of the things that got me into saving seeds in the first place. Which is the seed library at Whitewater. And what they have is they have a whole bunch of open pollinated seeds available, and you can check out on your library card up to 5 packages of seeds at no charge. There will be at least 10 seeds in there, and you can save some of the seed for yourself for the future. They'd love it if you return some of the seed to the library, but even though you check out the seeds, you're not required to return any. So don't let that stand in your way. Lots of them are easy to grow. Some are more challenging to save seed from, and they'll help you build your skills. They have a wonderful selection. They've got peas, beans, tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, cucumbers, greens, flowers, sunflowers, zinnias, native flowers like coneflowers and brown black-eyed Susans, and I mean just tons and tons of different varieties of seeds. So it's a wonderful resource to be aware of. Another set of resources to be aware of is your library has tons of books available online. So even a couple of them are available as ebooks. If you're not yet to the point where you're comfortable going out into the world, you can go online to the digital library and start reading about them. So don't forget your own library as a resource for learning more about saving seeds.
Thanks, Ruth. And I'm going to post some book titles in the comments section. And Michelle said that those books are in the Walworth County Library system. So I'm going to post some resources, some links to websites, and links to books that you can get right from your local libraries. So that'll be really helpful. We have a little bit more to cover, and then we'll get into some questions. So Ruth, what are we talking about here? What's happening out in the gardens this time of year?
Okay, so I get this every year. I walk out and my tomatoes, the ends of the branches and the leaves, something's eating them. And if I look around and I find these ridged pellets that are over there on the right, and they vary in size. They can be as small as like cracked pepper or as large as 1/4 of an inch. But if I go looking for those and I find them, I very likely have this pest, which is called a hornworm for the lovely little tail end there that you can see. And there are 2 varieties out there that you might see on your tomatoes, but as far as dealing with them, makes no difference. The one on the left is actually a tobacco hornworm. The one on the right is a tomato hornworm. But you deal with them the same way. And so look for those little pellets. And when you find them, look above where they are and on the undersides of the stems They're really well camouflaged, so don't give up till you find it, because if you have the frass, you're gonna have a worm somewhere. So, and then the easiest thing to do for, well, there's a couple things you can do for them. One, you can just hand pick them. It's like peeling Velcro, but you can do it. And then you can either drop them in soapy water, or you can drop them on the ground and squish them, whatever you're comfortable with. That is the recommended method for small areas if you only have a few plants. There are some sprays. If you're looking for an organic, look for a variety of BT or Bacillus thuringiensis that's rated for caterpillars, for hornworms. Be sure you spray your plants really thoroughly though, because if they don't eat it, it's not going to work. And there are also some other non-organic sprays that are rated for hornworms that you can use as well, whatever you're comfortable with. And a couple of other quick things you can do to reduce the likelihood of seeing them in the future. There are some weeds that they might live on instead of your tomatoes. That would be either nightshade, which is a vine with little purple and yellow flowers that look like tomato flowers, horse nettle, and jimson weed. So if you can eliminate those near your garden, you'll reduce the likelihood of having hornworms on your tomatoes. You can also dig up and turn the ground after you have your tomato plants out in the fall, because they overwinter in the soil in a pupa, in a hard case. So if you disturb the ground, you disturb their life cycle. And then the last thing you can do, if we can have the next slide, is if you see a hornworm like this with what looks like a bunch of grains of white rice on it, leave it there. What that is there are several parasitic wasps that live on the hornworms. So they inject their eggs into the hornworm, and it eats that hornworm from the inside out. And so these white things here are actually egg cases for more wasps. So you actually want to leave them so that they do hatch out and they take care of more of the hornworms for you. So tomato hornworms.
Be on the lookout. And I like this picture too, because it shows it's on the underside of the leaf. So, you have to be really careful when you're scouting for any bugs. Really look thoroughly on the top, on the stems, under the leaves, because they pretty much are the same color as that leaf. So they are hard to spot, but they can be quite sizable too. They can be as big as your finger when they start growing, and they eat a lot. They can totally chow down on your tomato plants. So we have a question from Michelle. She had sent me some photos before, and she goes, "What's wrong with my tomatoes?" So I thought maybe if other people are seeing some symptoms like this, we could address them. And I know, Ruth, you're an avid vegetable gardener. Do you have any advice for Michelle, or what do you think is wrong?
From what I see, does it start at the bottom of the plant, Michelle, and then seem like it moves up?
Yes, I would agree with that. Particularly the second picture. I think that's true. Yeah.
Okay. In all likelihood, this looks to me like a fungal blight. There's a couple varieties of them. One of them is called early blight, and one of them is called Septoria leaf spot. But it doesn't, okay, this is my personal opinion, because I don't bother to try and distinguish between the two, because you deal with them the same. So the things that I can think of to suggest would be to remove the yellowed, and because they'll continue to get darker and they'll shrivel up and die. So if you can break off those particular ones that seem to be affected. In the picture on the right, you can see the brown spots on the leaf down towards the bottom. That's pretty typical. anything that's that affected, if you can remove it from the plant, and then maybe give the plants a shot of fertilizer to help what's still there do a little bit better and make sure that it has good nutrition.
Okay,
It's a tough
great.
one because they come in, it can be in the soil, it can be wind blown, it might splash up when it rains from the soil onto the leaves. So it's a tough one to prevent. And there's not a whole lot you can do once you have it. Heather,
Great.
do you have anything to add, Heather?
No, I don't think so. Removing the dead parts. I mean, if they're not close together, so it's not airflow. But, and so yeah, my best assumption would be to remove the dead ones or the infected ones and hope.
Right.
Oh,
And Michelle and I had talked about too, making sure with consistent watering too. So, you know, just keeping the plant, making sure just to keep the rest of the plant healthy. So container plants usually dry out more than those in the ground. So if there was any moisture issues of being overwatered or underwatered, you would also see yellowing of leaves. A lot of times overwatering and underwatering in any plant kind of show the same symptoms. They both kind of get really wilty. So it's hard to tell, you know, what's happening underground if there was too much or too little water, but just again, keeping the plants nice and healthy. And if you do apply like a liquid fertilizer, make sure that the soil is moist when you apply it. You don't want to apply fertilizer to dry soil.
Julie, could I add one thing?
Go for it.
When you do remove the affected leaves, Michelle, do not put them in your compost because then the fungal spores will just be growing through your compost. So you can put them in the trash, you can burn them, or you can bury them.
Okay.
But don't put them in your compost.
Good
Thank
tip.
you.
And Michelle also shared these photos of some tomatoes and was concerned that if something was eating them. I can see kind of in that left photo, it looks like almost like there's holes in there.
I have seen tomatoes much like this regularly. I don't think it's that something is chewing on it. I don't know if it's, again, possibly a watering. It might be a pollination issue, or possibly a watering issue. I'm not an expert on this. I have seen it. I know it's not a critter.
Okay, so I can give you a little bit of background. Both of the tomato that you see in front, we're raising them in straw bales. So we went and we fertilized and conditioned the straw bales before, and then they were on a soaker hose from them. I will say last year we had so many flower buds, and this year not so many. And we planted the Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Ruth. I don't think it's a pest issue. I think it's more of a fruit formation issue, but I'm going to look at another resource I have. And if I have another answer for you, I'll let you know, Michelle.
Wonderful. My husband will be very happy.
Awesome.
His hopes and dreams are tomatoes.
So are my sons. We planted 19 tomato plants and they're starting to ripen now, all the cherry tomatoes. So he's having a field day. So I'm going to just a reminder, I'm going to post lots of resources into those comments, resources and links to books and websites and those hornworms and seed saving. So lots of things to read up on. Of course, if you have any questions at all, you can contact me directly. I'll put my email address in the comments box too. So if you have a gardening question, even if it's something about something else that we didn't cover today, let me know. I'd be happy to help. And if you are watching this program today or some other day, we'd love to hear your feedback. So one more link is going to be to just a really brief survey. We would love to hear from you, and that can help us with future programs. So thank you, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. If there's any other questions that we can answer, we'd be glad to do it.
So don't forget, you can always drop by and put your questions in the post throughout the week while you're watching the videos. And I want to thank Julie and Heather and Ruth for all their information and knowledge sharing today. And I hope you guys all have a great week, and we'll see you next week. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you.